This video is not a fun one. I'm not going to enjoy recording this video. But I wanted to make this video because I think it's important to demonstrate to people that we need to wait for the facts to come in before we start drawing conclusions about things. The reason for that, I have a headline here, and I'm going to show you a video in a moment. The headline says that Texas shooter barricaded himself for 40 minutes as police waited. And this was at the elementary school in Texas, where a gunman killed, I think at this point in time, it's 19 children and 2 adults. And the story that's going around is that police were staging outside of the building, and they weren't going in after the shooter. And this had parents enraged, as parents were standing outside filming the police, screaming at them to go inside as children were being killed. And when I heard this, it had me very upset. To be honest, it had me in tears. The reason for that is because that's not how we're trained. We're trained to respond to an active shooter, and you go in and you try to save lives as quick as possible. That's how we're trained. We're not trained to stage outside of a school if there's a shooting going on at a school. This is a result of the lessons that we learned from the Columbine incident. At Columbine, the officers staged outside the school for a very long period of time as these kids walked around the school and just executed their classmates. We, as police nationwide, changed up the way we were trained, and we're now taught that when you arrive on scene of an active shooter, you seek out the threat and you address that threat. I was very angry when I saw this story earlier today. And there's a video, I don't know if it's necessary to play the video, but this news station, they have video of parents saying that they were upset and they're yelling at the officers for not going in. It made me angry to the point that I texted one of my friends and I said, if this is true, then every officer who stood outside of that school while children were being killed needs to turn in his badge. That's not what we do. It's not why we have this job. Our job is to try to save people's lives and not stand by while people are being hurt. But the reason this is about making sure you have the facts is because the story that was being put out isn't necessarily what was happening. And this is very common in very chaotic situations like this. And I understand why some people might be confused about what happened. But this article that I found by Breitbart does a pretty good job of going through what really happened. Instead of reading the article, I've already read through it a couple of times. I just want to describe it to you, and I'll link it in the comment or in the video description. I might even pin a comment. But from what I've seen, this guy drove to the school. He jumped out. He shot at a couple people as he was running up to the school. Then he ran into the school and started shooting. At that point, police officers responded immediately. The information that has been released by Texas law enforcement is that a couple officers went into the school. They addressed the threat immediately, and he shot 2 police officers before barricading himself into a classroom. Once he was barricaded in that classroom, the best I can assume is that a handful of officers stayed by that door and made sure that he didn't come back out. And then they did their best to evacuate the rest of the students from the school. It's not clear whether or not he was still inside that classroom shooting people, or if he had already shot all of the students that were in that classroom before barricading himself in. But regardless of that, he was confronted by police officers immediately. He shot 2 of them. He then barricaded himself into a room, and the patrol officers who responded to scene found themselves in a situation where they were unable to deal with a barricaded subject with an unknown number of hostages. So what they did in that case is they called for like a QRF, a quick reaction force, somebody that was better equipped to handle that situation. That quick reaction force came in the form of some form of Border Patrol Special Reaction Team. I don't know the exact name of this team that responded, but it was a team of guys with a high level of training that were equipped to handle this kind of job. As soon as they arrived on scene, they entered the school and they addressed the threat, and that's how this guy was taken out. The initial stories were, this was the reason I had a problem with the way this was being reported, because they were saying that police officers were just standing outside while children were being hurt, but it was also being reported that an off-duty Border Patrol agent responded without hesitation, entered the building, and confronted the shooter. Now, I find it to be nearly impossible to believe that if police officers were staging outside of this school, that a Border Patrol agent, while off-duty wearing civilian clothes, would have been able to bypass all of those officers with a firearm, get into the school, and address the threat. So I do think that the story that's reported in this article is most likely the right scenario. That officers responded on scene, they confronted the shooter, multiple officers were struck by gunfire. The shooter then barricaded himself in a room, and a special tactics team was called in to get him out of that room. I don't know. I hope that clears up some of what happened on scene, and I don't know. I hope you guys find this informative. And I just ask that people stop jumping to conclusions with some of this stuff, because the information that's getting put out is usually gathered in a hasty manner, and the accuracy is not the most important thing to a lot of these agencies that are putting information out. So I don't know. That's gonna be my video for today. I'll talk to you guys soon.